Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Manufacturing Stream Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Whitley, Director of Manufacturing Solutions here at L2L. Man, I'm so excited about today's podcast. You're going to find out here pretty soon. I have a special guest on with me today. A gentleman by the name of Ellis. I know him as Hillbilly. You're going to hear a lot more about that stuff. But Ellis and I have been working together for years and years and years of talking about TPM, doing TPM in different plants. We've been in the freezing cold of Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada in the middle of winter. We've been in Louisiana in the middle of summer and every place in between when it comes to teaching TPM. So I'm really excited. So let me introduce you to my buddy, former Navy Rio, I think in F4s, wasn't it, Ellis?
F4, but
Marines. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, they just gave me a paycheck to cash. I didn't,
nice.
So.
Former Marine Rio in an F4 Phantom. TPM coordinator way back in the day at Pirelli. And that's where he and I got to know each other, and consultant for years and years and years. So let me introduce you to Ellis New. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
It's great to see you. And very quickly to your listening audience or viewing audience, he's going to call me Hillbilly. I'm going to call him 6W, and there's a story behind that. At the appropriate time, I'll share that. But thank you, 6W.
Go ahead. We might as well get it out of the way because you're going to call me 6W through this whole thing.
Will. Yeah. Well, Eric's got, when I first met him, he had, without a doubt, the best opening statement in introducing himself. He, in his physical stature demands attention, 6'6", 6'5", whatever it is, big burly mountaineer-looking guy, and he walks in and says, "My name's Eric Whitley. I'm from Bear River City, Utah. And the answer to your first question is yes. And the answer to your second question is no. Yes, I'm a Mormon. But no, I don't have more than one wife. I can't afford the one I got. Why would I need another one?" And out of that came 6W, because I calculated the math, and the average Mormon in Utah's got 6 wives, so we started calling him 6W, whether he had one or more or not. So anyway,
that's right. That's been my call sign for 40 years, hasn't it?
It has. And you mentioned how long we've been working together. 6W, I no longer say years. I count decades.
Yes.
That you and I. It's almost 4 decades, brother, that we go back. And time flies when you're having fun, brother.
Well, let me tell you what. So here's what I did yesterday. I know these are not official numbers, but I wanna roll this out to you. I calculated. So let's say you and I we kind of started to know each other around 1995 or so.
Yep.
We were doing TPM together.
That would be spot on, yeah.
I was the Total Productive Maintenance Coordinator at Autoliv. Ellis was the Total Productive Maintenance Coordinator at Pirelli. Yep. And we actually exchanged. He sent some folks to my plant to do some training to get their certifications on TPM. I sent some folks to his plant to get some certification on TPM. So I'm taking 1995 as the date, right? Okay, so that's the date. So I did a little math. If we calculate 30 weeks a year, let's say we've trained this thing 30 weeks a year, right? And which is very conservative, because I know there were times when you and I were traveling together that we were 45 weeks a year on the road.
Hey, we were on the road 22 weeks in a row sometimes. I remember that one time.
That's exactly right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I'm taking that, and I'm taking an average of 35 people a class that we taught this stuff?
Yeah, that would.
Buddy, that you have taught this now. You have taught over 50,000 people total productive maintenance. If you take those numbers, 35 people a class over those 30 years that we've been doing, that's 50,000 folks that you've imparted your knowledge on. So
my goodness, bro.
If we think we don't got the guy sitting here with us today, I mean, we surely do. Well,
so Yeah, but that's again back at you. But God, I'd never thought about it in that way. And
Yeah.
that's more than the Lord fed with the loaf and the fish
That's
and all.
exactly-
So
that's
at one
exactly
time, so
That's exactly
shucks.
right. Yeah.
But no,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
TPM, as we both know, is technically speaking, is a data-driven process, and that data metric right there is awe-inspiring to think that we've had the opportunity to influence a number like that. That's just phenomenal.
Truly is. So
anyway.
I want to talk a little bit. We definitely want to talk TPM today. So let's just kind of jump right into it here. You and I could, before everybody listen, this banter we've been doing for the last 6 minutes, we could do it for 5 hours, and we have done it for 5 hours. So we need to kind of control ourselves and actually talk about the topic here a little bit. So you'll notice that on my backboard here, I put up our little ditty here, you know.
Yes, sir. You sure did.
Clean to inspect, inspect to detect, detect to correct, and correct to perfect, right? We've been teaching that concept for years and years and years, like we talked about. Give me your insights on this. I mean, this is just a little thing we use. We used to write them on flip charts, on acetate screens, on the projectors and stuff like that.
Be remiss if I didn't put it first in what I call what I call the three-legged stool: production, maintenance, engineering, technical, communicating, cooperating, collaborating with each other to create a partnership, and then the center point, both socially, culturally, and technically speaking, something we call autonomous maintenance, operator-based maintenance. Not operators fixing and repairing, but educating, training, empowering, and holding accountable in a positive way your front line of defense, those production process owners, I like to call them, whether you have them on a piece of equipment and or your process is an equipment-centric process. Those operators, those production process owners are critical to not just equipment reliability, but the process itself, a reliable process. And ultimately, in a technical way, with a social cultural influence, as I just aforementioned, it's important that those folks out there are not out there just pushing buttons, but they're out there engaged in what is going on within their sphere of responsibility. And clean to inspect. I like to call cleaning physical inspection. Looking with your hands, just like you would look with your eyes. Your hands can see a lot more, a lot of times, than what your eyes can see. And then inspecting for what? Cleaning for what? Not cleaning to clean, but to detect what we call in the zero failure principle, a word called abnormality or abnormalities. Looking for those things that the longer they go unnoticed or worse, ignored, the more catastrophic the reality is going to be if we don't do something proactively about it. So they're being engaged in the process, empowered in the process to detect and look for those things before they become that reality. And, the whole correct to protect perfect is the worst condition. And Seiichi Nakajima taught you and I this, the grandfather at TPM, taught us this decades ago, 6W. The worst condition of any piece of equipment or a process that's equipment-centric should be the day that it's new off the truck, new out of the box, new off the crate. And we have a choice at that point in time. And your front line of defense or centric or critical to this, we can either say that's the best condition it's ever going to be in and wait till the first failure, or we can say it's the worst condition it will ever be in. And we engage those production process owners in that technique that you have scripted there on the board behind you. So that's a long-winded answer to your question of what that means to me. It means really at 30,000 feet, two things. It means a social cultural way of change in your manufacturing process, but it also means a new or a different technical approach to the way we go about that.
Yeah, I've always taught the principle that you just taught that think about, for our race fans that are out there, you think about, Sunday morning at Talladega Superspeedway, and you've got 45 NASCAR stock cars sitting on the grid ready to start this race. They're perfectly clean. They got fresh oil in them. They're as good as they're going to get, right? From that point. And you start the race, but invariably every single race, you'll get down to about 20 or 30 laps left in the race, and Larry McReynolds or one of the announcers will announce that the leader just ran the fastest lap of the race. And you think, what do you mean? They just went 450 miles at 200 miles an hour, beating and banging. How could it be possible that they're faster now than they were when they were brand new sitting on the starting grid? And the fact of the matter is because they've looked for problems to solve all day long, and they've adjusted and they've improved those things, and they've made it better as it went along. And so that's the kind of the concept that you were talking about, that the best a machine is ever going to, or the worst a machine should ever be, is when you bolt it to the floor, and then your systems and processes should make it better from there.
Yep. Larry Mack, and a mutual friend of all of ours, said one time that if I can't finish the race, I can't win the race. Reliability, and then how they use data, not to go down the data pathway right now, but what you just said. It's not just looking for problems, but they're also really good at problem avoidance, looking ahead of to understand what needs to be done before it needs to be done to correct it. And you're right. It's almost, in a lot of cases, they get better as the race goes on, and go figure that, the wear and tear on every component of that mobile piece of equipment, and the fact that it gets better through the process. And that's back to my point. It's either the worst condition it's ever going to be in or the best condition. But anyway, not to hijack that comment, as you were saying.
Good. Totally good. That's what we're here for.
So, anyway.
Yeah. I over the years, part of my job has been to take these concepts and try to figure out a way to advance them in a digital world, right? So just kind of back to your concept, and for those of you that know L2L, one of the things that we do really well is, Ellis was just talking about, the operator being able to identify an abnormality. Well, what we want to do is give them an easy way to report that abnormality so that everybody can see it and go get it fixed before it actually becomes a new way to do that. So we've tried to build into that whole process, that very basic thought process of tell me what's wrong, and do it quickly and make it easy for the operator to do, right, out on the shop floor. So tell me a little bit about and I know we just talked about it, but tell me, in industry, we are really suffering with getting good people to work in manufacturing, or getting people to work in manufacturing.
Understatement. You're right. Yep.
Tell me a little about the importance of training the frontline worker, getting that frontline worker involved. What are your thoughts on that?
And my thoughts before, I'll have to go back and say I apologize. I was going to throw that question back at you before you answered it yourself, around L2L and what's y'all's position. Not that I thought it would be different, but knowing that we're parallel with each other, right, in our processes of thought, the way we go about doing things. So I've already used the analogy that in manufacturing, I'll say manufacturing, it can be an oil field that we've been in the northern Albertan province of Fort McMurray, or Fort McMoney, as some people call it. Yes. And it's 60 below zero, and it warmed up to 38 below. And for all the analytics out there, well, was that Fahrenheit or centigrade? Well, at minus 40, they intersect, so it really doesn't matter. Right. But regardless of where you are at in the environment literally, that you're in, you have two choices. You can either on board, and as a Marine Corps officer, we were taught that you're constantly developing your people. That's a leader's responsibility, to develop their people. Or you can just have a process of onboarding button pushers. And my challenge or my question is, which do you want? What this process mandates is that we onboard the right core competencies that we're looking for within our organization. And oh, by the way, make sure it's attractive too, that we retain them. And one of the ways we retain them is by enhancing or continuing to develop their skill set. The 6 subsystems of maintenance, as we call it, not as a department, but as equipment reliability in no particular order: pneumatics, hydraulics, drive systems, lubrication systems, general machine elements. Those things are not just for the maintenance department. That's our responsibility to create production process owners. So they need to know what the thingamajig really is and what it does.
Right.
That's our responsibility to do that. And it's critical if we want reliability, if we want reliable equipment supporting a reliable process. And so that's how you create production process owners. The organizations, bless their heart, that don't understand that, wonder why they can't wonder why they keep losing good people,
right?
And then wonder why the ones that they don't want continue to hang around, because you're not doing anything to lead them, develop them. And so it's really, really critical. And back to those abnormalities that you and I talk about, what are the things that we should be aware of before it's something that we need to solve as a problem? They know the equipment. The people that operate equipment know it better than the people that maintain it, the people that designed it, built it, and installed it. They know every idiosyncrasy. Something doesn't smell right today. Something doesn't feel right. They know that because they have a relationship with that piece of equipment or with that process. But it's our responsibility as leaders, and what TPM mandates socially, culturally, as well as technically, is that we tap into that. And out of training comes empowerment. And empowerment's a good thing. Accountability is even better, because people want to be held accountable. They won't, but when you hold them accountable for reporting something, by golly, you better be prepared for what they tell you in the wake of that and say, hey, this doesn't smell right. We need to address this. And then from that point forward determines whether we're going to continue forward in developing them as process owners, or, wait a minute, you called me over here for something that smells funny? Don't call me again until it breaks. Well, guess what we just did, okay? Right. Pavlov's dog theory comes to mind in a statement like that. So.
Yeah, you and I were on the phone last night chatting a little bit about this, and we were talking about the word maintenance, right? And the thing that I've always tried to kind of convey is, we use this word maintenance. And it's got many different definitions. Sometimes it refers to the group of people within the plant that walk around with a tool belt. Yeah. It can refer to the geographical cubby hole within inside of a manufacturing plant, where those guys who with the tool belt store their toolboxes, right? That's maintenance. Or the one thing that you and I are talking about is that maintenance is more than that. It's the system or processes that you've chosen to maintain the reliability of your equipment. And in some cases, whether organizations realize it or not, their choice of maintenance is reactive. They chose to be reactive, right? They may not physically call it a program, but through their actions and or inactions, they've created a reactive maintenance system. And what we're talking about is getting the operators involved early as part of the maintenance system. We're not saying put them in as mechanics. We're saying get them involved as the maintenance system. A lot like a car, right? The driver of the car is not the mechanic that's going to change the transmission. Sometimes they can be, but most of the time they're the ones that put gas in it, make sure there's air in the tires, looking at the gauges as it drives down the road. That's the operator. And then you got the mechanic out there, right? So talk a little bit about maintenance in and of itself, not necessarily the people or the place, but the process.
The word maintenance, and I kind of have this in queue more in the lack of gray matter up there than at my fingertips. But the word maintenance out of Webster's Dictionary, College Bound 1987 edition, simply defines maintenance as the act of maintaining. So if you really, really want to know what the word maintenance means, you got to look up the word maintain. That's where it gets a little bit involved, 6W. And I'll quote from memory: to keep in a state of order, to keep in due, which means rightful, proper fitting, condition, force, and or operation, to keep unimpaired. And it's that last two or three words that leads me to say what you and I have done for the last 3.5 decades and 50,000 plus people. Most of the places we go, most places I go, 90% of the places I go, their maintenance department spends 95% of their time not doing their job, and it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault. If we want to blame somebody, blame leadership, because we have chosen to adapt, and it was a business model taught decades ago, ironically, I've discovered in the last decade and a half. There's a business model taught run to failure, that it's cheaper. I agree with that. It is cheaper, but it's not less expensive to run things to failure. And the problem is what you've alluded to, and that is we've pigeonholed maintenance and said it's the maintenance department's responsibility. Maintenance is the responsibility of everybody. Mm-hmm. The person that operates or drives the car is just as important in the reliability circle as the person that designed it, is the person that we take it to at the, in my case, you know, I'm a Ford guy, a Ford Lincoln dealership for scheduled activities. And then we, again, still have that choice. And that choice is, well, everything's running good. Nothing's broke yet. So, but it's, if I sum it up in one word, true maintenance is a culture. It's an organizational culture. And that culture, as we know, culture's responsibility of leadership. Well, if the leaders don't get that, then the people that follow them, that they lead, are not going to get it. And even if they get it, they're not going to adhere to it. They don't get any support there. So maintenance, reliability, whatever we want to call it, equipment process reliability, is not a departmental thing. It's an organizational culture thing. So hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And so then, I mean, that rolls into the thought process of TPM, because a TPM then is a structural approach to how you maintain your equipment. Luckily for us, you know, you and I both know him, but Norman Bodek back in the day,
amen,
took all of that knowledge from Nakajima and all of those guys, and put them into
Suzaki
books. Yeah,
well,
Suzaki, and put them into books. So then we can actually have that system or process, or that thought process of how we maintain equipment, and we can you got the red book right there.
I got the books right here for anybody that might be interested. I mean, anyway, continue, please. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking. I'm listening. And I'm not
at my desk, because I could grab those same things. I got those
I know
on
you
my
could.
desk as well.
I know you could.
But it is then the system or process of choice of how to maintain the equipment. And then if you are able to follow that process and instill that process inside of the organization, you get out of your reactive maintenance thought process or whatever it is, right? So
Yep. Well, decades for organizations that are down a pathway that we don't really desire to be down the pathway of. A friend of ours, and I'll kind of leave this anonymous because I didn't know, I didn't mention him. I was going to be on this podcast today. But he says decades of sin can't be corrected. You might try to fix it, but it can't be corrected overnight. But at the same time, it's no better time to start correcting that than right now.
Right now, yeah.
And so anyway, that just a tidbit to throw in there.
Yeah, when's the best time to plant a tree, right?
Today
or 20 years ago.
That's exactly right. So yeah. So anyway, you mentioned, by the way, the books. I got to throw them out there. Here's Nakajima's Blue Book. You and I call it. This is the 12 steps of how you do it. Back in the 80s, and here's his red book on what it is, the 5 elements of TPM. Yes. And then collectively, those were put together, and Suzaki got together with Suzaki, and they created the 8 pillars and these 12 steps, and an approach that would work in both the process and the discrete manufacturing and the process industry. And you're right, it's very systematic, it's very structured. You don't just throw caution to the wind and say, let's figure it out. And that's one of the many things I like about what you and your organization bring to the table. And that is that whole data metric component as one of them. There's science. TPM is not an art. Just like landing an aircraft is not an art. It's a science. We can actually apply science to it. Reliability is not an art, it's a science. And we can apply data metrics to that. And, you guys do a phenomenal job at L2L with creating the environment and using science, having a scientific method to getting better, to correcting the path that you're on. And then for those greenfield site organizations, you guys have a phenomenal approach to, let's start from the very beginning doing it the right way. And here's the right way. And it's all about data. So.
Yeah, and over the years, those years that you and I spent in the plants trying to make this thing happen, right? I mean, it wasn't just, we didn't get to wave our magic wand and use our golden tongues and people started falling in line. There was a lot of management of that process, a lot of daily task of trying to keep it going. So I've been able to draw on that, even though that was 30 years ago. I've been able to draw on that as we work with inside of the software and say, what are some of the things that have killed TPM programs? Well, things as simple as, back in the day, if you wanted somebody to follow a provisional standard or look at a 1-point lesson, you had to print that sucker out every morning and take it around to every production line, right? All right, so what do we do now? Well, let's put it in the system so that it digitally delivers itself right to an iPad to the person on the production line. They don't have to go searching for it, wondering if they have the latest revision. They don't have to wait for the coordinator to come around. The coordinator doesn't have to go collect them at the end of the day every day. They don't have to go through and try to decide, right? It's just digitally. It's the removal of waste within inside of the actual management of the process is what a couple of other things too that we do is, as well as I do, we send an operator out or even a mechanic on a PM. I mean, PMs and preventive maintenance are a large part of TPM.
Huge.
We get down into those pillars, right, as we do that. But you and I know that if you're printing out a piece of paper to give to the tech to take out to the machine and go check off everything they do in a PM, some of those things are not even applicable anymore. And there's no process or system for them to go change that or improve that. And so what the digital world has done for TPM is allows us to make those types of things easier from a management standpoint to where it just becomes part of your everyday normal job,
Absolutely. Well, again, going back to what you guys have done a phenomenal job of, I'll be the first one to tell you, 40 years ago, I was not about the digital so-called high-tech stuff. And the reason being, it really didn't exist then. My pre-flight, in-flight, post-flight inspection was all a physical checklist that we went through, checks and cross-checks. Now, I'm an old gray-haired guy. I grew up kind of with what Nakajima said 40 plus years ago. If you don't have the organizational discipline to manage your maintenance, not maintenance department, your maintenance on paper, you'll never have the organizational discipline to do it in a computer. Now, back then, we were talking 386 and 486 megabyte hard drives on a $1 million computer. We were also talking about a bunch of gray-haired people that got introduced to a computer their second semester of college.
Yeah.
Today, it's polar opposite. The workforce that you're trying to attract, the ones that you want as your production and maintenance process owners, they grew up with technology at the extension as an extension of their fingertips. Yeah. They would laugh at you, as they should today, if you handed them a piece of paper. They want the notebook. They want the smart technology, and you are spot on. The technology has evolved, as y'all have done a real good job of y'all have done a phenomenal job of providing what's needed and the ability to do that. And that's what's needed. So the evolution is there. The old gray-haired guy today, I don't know if there's somebody out there that's a bigger zealot for what you do in the technology today. But it didn't happen overnight. We evolved it with the core competencies of our people. Even the gray-haired folks, my brother is one of them, not to go down the pathway with him. He'll be retiring in a couple of years himself. He's 18 months my junior. He would have laughed at you 3 or 4 years ago. Guess what he walks around now in his hand as an operator maintainer? He's got a special classification. He performs maintenance department responsibilities as well as production. He's got a notebook. He's got electronic smart technology in his hand. Didn't happen overnight. He evolved to that point. And so you're right. You're exactly right. And that's
what we've tried to do is make sure that these things, back like what you were talking about computerized TPM back in the day, and I always say that. I always feel like such an old dude when I say back in the day, it's like back when I was a pup,
But we can say that, though, 6 days.
That's right.
Because it was back in the day 40 years ago.
It was, exactly. But to be able to, it was harder to manage back then because what you were doing was just pulling Excel files and printing stuff out. I mean, that's what you're doing,
Yeah.
Now what we've done, and I will tell you that's a big focus of what we do at L2L is to make it easy for people to use. Right. I mean, it's a no-brainer how to use it when you open it up type of deal. That's important. That's important for, guys of our stature, I guess.
Yeah. So, well, here's... If I won't mention the off-the-shelf because of just confidentiality, but I can say this. As the director of, and I had 12 plants at 4 sites in 2 different countries, and all of a sudden we decided we're going to computerize all of our maintenance in a computerized, the traditional CMMS.
CMMS,
Yep, computerized maintenance management system. And so corporate made a decision that I either had to agree with or start looking for a job. And so I agreed with their approach. But the folks are still in business today. I'm not a fan. I'll leave it at that. But their first prerequisite was they were going to train trainers for us. And again, I'll go back and say 35 years ago. And they told me to make sure that we sent to where they were at to train our trainers, that they were computer literate. And I say, wait a minute. How many of my workforce in maintenance, let alone in production, are computer literate? Right. So HR did a skills assessment on computer literacy 35 years ago. Now, I got a 3-year-old that is more literate today in a computer than I am, because I watched him on Smart TV the other day. A 3-year-old knows how to get to Netflix, and I don't know how to do that. But anyway, when HR came in and performed that computer literacy test, they discovered that 11% of our workforce, period, was computer literate. You've got to be kidding me. So literacy has something to do with, and oh, by the way, one of those that wasn't computer literate, guess who that was? The college grad guy, okay, director of, wasn't computer literate compared to what was needed to do that. And so what's happened over the years, we brought into the workforce people that are computer literate. We've come up with ways to enhance that core competency, that skill set, but it doesn't happen overnight. And that's, again, I keep throwing it back to you guys at L2L. Y'all have created a very user-friendly for all of us. And then, of course, it's helped as well that the workforce coming in today doesn't want physical check sheets printed out from a Lotus spreadsheet back in the day, not Excel, okay? Not Excel, Lotus. And going Lotus out 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yeah. And M-Basic Fortran, I can go that far back too, with computers and punch cards and dropping one of the 5 trays, and it, the whole weekend's worth of work with me and my lab buddies had to go back overnight and try to figure it out. So, but that's where we're at today, and the evolution is just and guess what's been the beneficiary of that? Equipment process reliability has, not to mention the social cultural component. But
so that's interesting, because that's one of my soapboxes that I get on, right? Is that even though technology has changed, the principles of this thing that we do called TPM, or any of the other lean principles, the Toyota production system, all of that, none of that has fallen by the wayside as far as importance goes, right?
Bingo. Not at all.
We haven't replaced the need for good, reliable equipment. We haven't replaced the need for eliminating waste out of processes. We haven't replaced the need for training your people. All we've done is made it easier and quicker and faster. That's really all we've done. But
6W, if you go back to the goals of TPM, let's people like to talk about lean today, whatever the heck lean is. I think lean's the reality or the outcome of a organization that understands reliability, but that's just my take on things.
Yeah, it's a good.
But if we go back to what the real goal of TPM is, and it's around 2 words, a perfect word called zero, and then the word failure. There's a greater need today for zero failure in an organization. And it's not just an asset failing. It's a process failure. It's what I like to call the 8 legs of the 3-legged stool not communicating with each other. Engineering not knowing what the pains are of the maintenance craft and the people operating the equipment. 40 years ago, if somebody didn't send them an improvement bulletin, if they didn't fax it to them, okay, or send it through the intercompany mailer, they never heard about it. Today, because of data metrics and electronics, they've got every bit of that at their fingertips now. Right. And organizations today, business leaders are savvy to the fact that, as we all know, money doesn't grow on a tree, but the ability to account for an expenditure today is more important than ever, because everybody can see it. It's out there for everybody to see. But what's also out there is the data. And we can get a whole lot closer to zero today than we've ever been able to get, whether it's unplanned downtime or unscheduled downtime, whether it's speed losses, whether it's quality or first pass yield defects, and more importantly, EH&S. We now have the ability through data and through this whole thing called, computerized stuff that I was so against 4 decades ago that I'm a zealot for today. That's enabled us to get a lot closer to that. And what used to cost us hundreds of thousands, if not millions, is literally, we'll add that to the checklist. And somebody will keep an eye on that. And we'll minimize the chance of that happening again through that production process owner, that maintenance process owner. Long before, because the data lets us know, hey, you've got a trend starting here. Long before that trend causes some sporadic catastrophe. Yeah. So, anyway, I went down another rabbit hole here.
You and I could talk all day long. I mean, yeah, exactly. That rabbit hole's got a 5-hour conversation around it, right? So you and I could talk all day. Before I let you go here, give me your if you had one thing to kind of take away from what this thing that we've taught for years, TPM, what has it done for industry? What's kind of the learning that everybody should know about this process that sometimes they just don't get, or sometimes they get it, and when they do it skyrockets them to new levels of stuff. Give us that last piece of wisdom there.
God, and it's got to be limited to one thing. I'll give you a statement with about 3 sentences. The first thing we have to understand is that total productive maintenance is really more about total productive manufacturing and total productive management. It's not a maintenance department thing. Reliability is the responsibility of the organization, not one department. I talk about the 3-legged stool: production, maintenance, and engineering technical. Communicating, cooperating, collaborating with each other, partnering with each other socially, culturally speaking. We really messed up back in the 80s when we translated the word hozen, which is one word pronounced like two, the Japanese word for maintenance. We turned that into maintenance when it should have been manufacturing, or when it should have been management. We have to understand that the word total is in there for a reason. It involves all 8 pillars, all 8 facets of an organization. Sales and marketing plays just as big a role in equipment process reliability as the person that designed it. Are they out there selling something, marketing something, or process it and capable of? Okay? If you want to improve quality, reliability, TPM is the key. If you want to enhance and improve EH&S, guess what is the key? Are we designing processes? 2 of the characteristics of TPM: operator, maintainer, friendly equipment processes. Are we involving them in that process? If not, they'll make it friendly to them at the expense of the organization. We also have to understand that whatever lean is, and Tiichi Ono said this best when you and I were in Japan with Toyota, and it's this: lean is not something you do, it's what you become as an organization. He actually said just in time. They didn't call it lean manufacturing back then. They called it just-in-time manufacturing. And he said the enabler to JIT, the enabler to lean, is reliable equipment supporting a reliable process. That's what TPM brings to the table. And it's an organizational thing. It's not a department-only thing. So there's my
That's amazing. That's a great
one
way
thing with about 15 different data points to it.
Great
So
way to end.
it's best I can say it. Okay.
No, and that's fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time out of your morning to be with us. I know you're a busy guy, and I know this. We scheduled this quite a few weeks ago, and I'm just really happy that you're able to join us here. And thanks for being a part of the whole deal. Thanks for being my buddy for 40 years. It just means a lot to me. We said last night on the phone, you and I are definitely brothers from a different mother.
Oh,
and appreciate that. So thanks for being with us. And gosh, I'll talk to you here. And it wouldn't be too long, in a week or so. Probably we'll get on the phone again. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I look forward to it, brother. God bless. Yeah. Godspeed. Okay.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Manufacturing Stream podcast. If you didn't learn anything out of that, I don't know what to do for you. Really, I don't know what to do for you when it comes to learning stuff. Ellis is an amazing guy, amazing friend. I'm really glad he was here. Thanks, Ellis, for being here. If you want to learn more about how we do TPM in the digital world on L2L, we've designed L2L that you could literally manage your entire TPM program on a digital platform. And so would love to show that to you. So get a hold of us at L2L.com, book a demo, get a hold of me at eric.whitley@L2L.com. I'm happy to get in touch with you for that. Ellis, where can people reach out to you as well if they want to get a hold of you and pick your brain for some knowledge?
Well, I'm not on social media, and that's by choice, but you can. Is it okay for me to give an email address and a phone number? Absolutely. The first is the latter is the phone number. It's a South Carolina area code 864-992-9589, and then the email address is my first initial and my last name, Echo November Echo Whiskey. That's ENEW at CenturyLink, one word, CenturyLink.net, not .com. But by all means, reach out.
I did forget to mention to everybody that, although you sound like you're not from New York. You're from South Carolina.
Most people don't realize it's a Northwestern accent and all, and it's not out there in Washington, Oregon. It's a Northwestern South Carolina accent, about 50 miles due south where they filmed Deliverance at. That's right. So That's right. I don't know if I should brag on that or not, but that explains the accent. Yeah. So anyway. All
right, buddy. Well, hey, thanks for your time. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you somewhere down the road.
God bless you, brother. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. I'm honored. Thank y'all.
Thank you.